Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
The tracker was professional grade, the kind they use on cop shows when they're hunting serial killers. I found it wedged behind my truck's rear bumper at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, my hands black with motor oil, and my marriage apparently dead as roadkill. Nothing says, "I love you," quite like covert surveillance equipment. I'd been doing routine maintenance in my driveway, the kind of blue-collar ritual that kept my 15-year-old Ford running and my mind off the fact that my wife Marissa had been acting stranger than a vegan at a barbecue convention. The little black box came loose when I was checking the exhaust system, and for a moment I just stared at it under my flashlight beam like it might explain itself. "Well, hell," I muttered, wiping grease on my coveralls. "Guess I'm more interesting than I thought." The house glowed behind me, all warm and suburban normal. But something cold was crawling up my spine. Marissa's BMW sat in the garage, pristine as always, while my beat-up work truck lived outside like the family dog. Through the kitchen window, I could see her moving around, probably making her nightly chamomile tea and checking her phone for the 100th time today. That phone, always buzzing, always lighting up her face with that secretive little smile she thought I didn't notice. I pocketed the tracker and cleaned up my tools, my mind racing faster than my pulse. Who puts a GPS device on their husband's truck? The kind of wife who needs to know where he is every minute of every day. The kind who's got something to hide and wants to make sure her husband isn't around to catch her hiding it. Inside, Marissa was curled up on our sectional sofa, laptop balanced on her knees, looking like the picture of domestic bliss in her silk pajamas. Her auburn hair was pulled back in one of those messy buns that probably took 20 minutes to perfect, and her reading glasses made her look scholarly and innocent. "How's the truck?" she asked without looking up from her screen. "Running like a dream," I said, settling into my recliner. "Found something interesting under there, though." She glanced up, and for just a split second, I saw something flicker across her face. Fear? Guilt? Hard to tell with Marissa. She'd perfected the art of looking concerned about everything and caring about nothing. "Oh, what kind of interesting?" I pulled out the tracker and set it on the coffee table between us, like a dead mouse the cat dragged in. "This kind." The laptop slid off her knees. Her face went through about 6 different expressions before settling on confused innocence. But I'd already seen what I needed to see. She knew exactly what that little black box was. "Nate, what is that thing?" GPS tracker. Professional grade, the kind that costs real money and updates every 30 seconds. I leaned back in my chair, watching her squirm. "Question is, who's been keeping tabs on me?" "I have no idea. Maybe someone at your work? You know how paranoid construction companies can be about their equipment." "Nice try." I ran my own small contracting business, just me and 2 part-time guys who could barely remember to show up on time, let alone orchestrate covert surveillance operations. "Marissa, this was attached to my personal truck with industrial adhesive. Someone wanted it to stay put." Her phone buzzed on the side table. Without thinking, she reached for it, then caught herself and pulled back like it was radioactive. But I'd already seen the name on the screen. Dylan. Dylan. Who the hell was Dylan? "Aren't you going to get that?" I asked. "It's probably work. I'll call back tomorrow." The phone buzzed again. And again. Dylan was persistent, I'd give him that. "Must be important," I said. "Dylan seems pretty eager to talk." The blood drained from her face. "It's just a client. You know how needy they get about closing dates." "At midnight?" "Different time zones," she said quickly. "He's in California." The phone kept buzzing. Dylan from California apparently having some kind of real estate emergency that couldn't wait until business hours. How convenient. I picked up the tracker again, turning it over in my hands. "You know what's funny? I've been thinking lately that you seem awfully concerned about my whereabouts. Always asking where I'm going, when I'll be back, who I'm meeting with, almost like you need to know my schedule for some reason." "I care about you, Nate. Is that a crime?" "No, but stalking might be." She stood up abruptly, gathering her laptop and phone. "I'm going to bed. This conversation is ridiculous. Sweet dreams, I called after her. Try not to worry about where I am. I'll be right here all night. She paused at the bottom of the stairs, her back still turned to me. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing at all. Sleep tight, honey. After she disappeared upstairs, I sat in the quiet living room, rolling the tracker between my palms. Our 16-year-old daughter Sienna's school photos smiled down at me from the mantel, back when she still looked at me like I hung the moon instead of like I was something stuck to her shoe. When had everything gone so wrong? My phone was buzzing now. Text message from my buddy Ricky at the gym. You still coming tomorrow morning? Got something to show you. I typed back, wouldn't miss it. Got something to show you too. Upstairs, I could hear Marissa moving around, probably texting Dylan back and explaining why she couldn't talk. Poor guy. Probably wondering why his girlfriend's husband was asking questions about GPS trackers. Girlfriend. The word hit me like a punch to the gut, but it fit. All those late nights at the office. All those weekend client meetings. All those new clothes and sudden interest in the gym. Classic cheating wife behavior. Right out of the handbook. I should have been angrier. Should have stormed upstairs and demanded the truth. But instead, I felt something cold and calculating settling into my chest. Anger was messy and emotional. This was better. This was clarity. I had a tracker. She had a secret boyfriend named Dylan, and I had absolutely no intention of confronting either of them until I knew exactly what I was dealing with. Time to do a little tracking of my own. Ricky's gym occupied the bottom floor of a converted warehouse on the rough side of town, the kind of place where serious people came to hit heavy bags and mind their own business. At 6 a.m., it was just me, Ricky, and two guys I didn't recognize, working the weights, like they had personal vendettas against iron. You look like hell, Ricky said, wrapping his hands for his morning routine. He was built like a brick wall with graying temples, an ex-cop who'd opened the gym after taking early retirement. Marissa keeping you up nights? Something like that. I pulled the tracker out of my gym bag. Ever see one of these before? He stopped rapping and picked it up, turning it over with the careful attention of someone who'd spent 20 years in law enforcement. Oh yeah, this is high-end stuff. Real-time GPS, probably syncs to a smartphone app. Where'd you find it? Under my truck. Shit. He set it down on the bench between us. You think Marissa's having you followed? I think Marissa's having me tracked, so she knows when it's safe to do whatever she's doing when I'm not around. You sure about that? I told him about Dylan and the midnight phone calls, about the new clothes and the sudden interest in working late. Ricky listened without interrupting, his cop instincts probably cataloging every detail. So, what's your plan? He asked when I finished. I'm going to disappear for a day. See what happens when she thinks I'm 3 states away. That's either brilliant or stupid. Maybe both. Story of my life. We spent the next hour working out the details. Ricky had a friend who ran long-haul trucking routes, a guy who owed him favors and wouldn't ask too many questions. For $200, he'd take the tracker with him on his next run to Montreal. Meanwhile, I'd check into a motel across town and see how Marissa reacted to her husband's apparent disappearance into Canada. You sure you want to do this? Ricky asked as we finished up. Once you know for sure, you can't unknow it. I already know. This just confirms it. By 10 a.m., the tracker was heading north on I-75, attached to the undercarriage of a Peterbilt hauling auto parts to Quebec. I'd turned off my phone and checked into the Sleepy Inn. A place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't look too closely at fake names on the register. The room smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams, but it had a window facing the parking lot and cable TV. I settled in to wait. My phone stayed off until 6 p.m. When I finally powered it up, the screen exploded with notifications. 14 missed calls from Marissa, 8 from a number I didn't recognize, and a string of text messages that told the whole story. Marissa, 11:30 a.m. Where are you? Called the office. They said you weren't coming in today. Marissa, 12:15 p.m. Nate, please call me back. I'm worried. Marissa, 1:45 p.m. Your truck isn't at any of your usual places? Where are you? Unknown number, 2:20 p.m. Why is your husband in Canada? This wasn't part of the plan. Marissa, 2:22 p.m. I don't know. He's not answering his phone. Unknown number, 2:25 p.m. Fix this, now. Marissa, 3:10 p.m. Nate, whatever's wrong, we can work it out. Please just call me. Unknown number, 4:30 p.m. If he's on to us, we need to end this. Marissa, 4:32 p.m. He doesn't know anything. He can't know anything. Unknown number, 5:15 p.m. Then where the hell is he? Bingo. Dylan, I presumed. And he was nervous. I turned the phone back off and ordered pizza from a place that delivered to motels without asking questions. While I waited for my dinner, I planned my next move. Tomorrow, I'd drive home like nothing happened. I'd tell Marissa I'd gone fishing up north, lost cell service, decided to stay overnight. She'd be relieved. Dylan would calm down, and they'd go back to their careful routine of sneaking around behind my back. Except now I knew their routine. Now I knew they had a plan, and I wasn't supposed to be part of it. The pizza arrived with extra pepperoni and a side of righteous anger. I ate both and started making plans of my own. I got home Thursday evening with a cooler full of gas station ice and a story about the fish that got away. Marissa met me at the door like a golden retriever, whose owner had been gone for a month instead of 36 hours. Thank God you're okay, she said, throwing her arms around me. I was so worried. Sorry, honey. You know how it is up at the lake. Cell service is terrible. You should have told me you were going. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing. Jimmy called, said the base were biting. Jimmy was my sometimes employee, who wouldn't remember what he had for breakfast, let alone whether he'd invited me fishing. Perfect alibi. Well, next time just leave a note or something. I didn't know what to think. I kissed her forehead, tasting lies and expensive shampoo. Won't happen again. But it would happen again because now I knew how the game was played. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a student of my wife's schedule. She had client meetings on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, property showings on Saturday afternoons, training seminars that ran late into Sunday evenings. Dylan, meanwhile, had become a regular presence in our text message exchanges, always needing something urgent, always requiring Marissa's immediate attention. Real estate emergency here, closing crisis there. The man was either the unluckiest property buyer in Michigan or the most demanding boyfriend in history. I was betting on boyfriend. 2 weeks after the tracker incident, I made my first real move. Marissa was getting ready for another client meeting, standing in front of our bedroom mirror in a black dress that cost more than my monthly truck payment. You look nice, I said from the doorway. Thanks. This client is very particular about presentation. Dylan? She froze, lipstick halfway to her mouth. What? The client tonight? Is it Dylan? Yes. How did you know that? Lucky guess. You talk about him a lot. He's a very demanding client. I bet he is. I stepped into the room, watching her reflection in the mirror. What kind of property is he looking for again? Commercial space? Downtown area? He's very specific about his requirements. Must be. You've been showing him properties for what, 3 months now? The market is complicated right now. Sure is. I sat down on the bed, making myself comfortable. You know, I was thinking maybe I should meet this Dylan guy, get a sense of what he's looking for. Maybe I could help with the renovation work once he finds the right place. The lipstick slipped out of her fingers and clattered onto the dresser. That's not necessary. Come on, it could be good for business. How often do you get a client who's willing to spend this much time and money? Nate, please. This is my job. I know it is. I'm just trying to be supportive. I stood up and walked over to her, placing my hands on her shoulders. In the mirror, She looked like she was about to throw up. Maybe I could tag along tonight, as backup in case he has questions about construction costs. Absolutely not. The words came out too fast, too sharp. We both heard it. Why not? I asked quietly. Because, because it would be unprofessional. Clients don't expect to meet their agent's husband. Marissa, we've been married 18 years. I've met plenty of your clients. This is different. How? She turned around in my arms, her green eyes bright with something that might have been panic. It just is. Please trust me on this. I do trust you, I lied. Have a good meeting. After she left, I sat in our kitchen drinking beer and thinking about trust, about how she'd looked in that mirror, about the way she'd said Dylan's name, about the tracker that was probably still pinging its location from somewhere in Quebec. My phone rang. Ricky. How's the...
She just gave me a massage! That's it!
Remember, I won't be a fool!
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
the detective work going? I think I'm ready for the next phase. What did you have in mind? How do you feel about a little surveillance work? Depends. Are we talking legal surveillance or the kind that gets me in trouble with my parole officer? The legal kind. I just want to know where my wife goes on Tuesday and Thursday nights. That's easy enough. What's in it for me? Free renovation work on your office. Deal. By the time Marissa came home that night, smelling like wine and making excuses about long client dinners, I was already 3 moves ahead. Ricky would follow her next Tuesday. I'd finally get proof of what I already knew. And then the real fun would begin. She kissed me goodnight like always, told me she loved me like always, and went to sleep next to me like always. But I lay awake listening to her breathe, planning her destruction, and feeling something cold and satisfied settling into my bones. If she wanted to play games, I'd show her how it was done. Tuesday night, Ricky followed Marissa's BMW to the Riverside Inn, a mid-range hotel on the outskirts of town that catered to business travelers and people who needed privacy. She met Dylan in the parking lot, tall, lean, wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in a week. They went to room 237 and didn't come out for 3 hours. I got pictures, Ricky said, sliding a manila envelope across the table at our usual diner. Nothing pornographic, just them going in and coming out, timestamps on everything. I looked through the photos without emotion. There was my wife of 18 years, holding hands with a stranger in a hotel parking lot. There she was again, straightening her dress as they walked to his car. There was Dylan, kissing her goodbye under a streetlight like they were teenagers. You okay? Ricky asked. I'm perfect. You don't look perfect. You look like you're planning a murder. Not murder. Something better. I spent the rest of the week researching Dylan Garrett, commercial real estate developer and serial cheater, according to his social media presence. He owned a small firm that specialized in strip mall development, drove a leased Tesla, and had a weakness for married women and expensive restaurants. He also had a very public online presence, which was going to make this so much easier. Thursday night, instead of following Marissa to another hotel room, I went to Dylan's office building and waited. Sure enough, at 10:30 p.m., they pulled up in his Tesla, laughing and groping each other like horny teenagers. I took pictures of my own. Friday morning, I created an anonymous email account and sent those pictures to Dylan's business partner, his ex-wife, and the local real estate licensing board, along with a note about professional ethics and conflict of interest. Then I sat back and watched the fireworks. Dylan's business partner called an emergency meeting. His ex-wife called her lawyer about alimony modifications. The licensing board opened an investigation into his relationship with a married colleague. By Friday afternoon, Dylan was having the worst day of his professional life, and he had no idea why. Marissa came home that evening in tears. What's wrong, honey? I asked all-concerned husband. Just work stuff. One of my clients is having some problems. Dylan? She nodded, wiping her eyes with a tissue. Someone's been spreading rumors about him. Malicious gossip that could ruin his reputation. That's terrible. What kind of rumors? I don't want to talk about it. Come on, maybe I can help. What are people saying? She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Someone sent pictures of him with a woman to his business associates. They're saying he's having an affair. Is he? What kind of question is that? A reasonable one. Is Dylan having an affair? How would I know? You spend enough time with him. You must have some insight into his personal life. She stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. This is ridiculous. I'm going to bed. Marissa, she stopped but didn't turn around. If Dylan is having an affair, the woman involved should probably be careful. These things have a way of coming out, and when they do, everyone gets hurt. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, just an observation. She went upstairs without another word, and I poured myself a whiskey to celebrate the first successful battle in what was going to be a very long war. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Dylan finally ready for a conversation. I typed back, I don't think we do. You don't know what you're dealing with. Sure I do. I'm dealing with a man who's sleeping with my wife. There was a long pause, then. Meet me tomorrow. Riverside Inn, room 237. Noon. The same room where he'd been screwing my wife. The arrogance was almost admirable. See you there, I replied. Time to meet Dylan face to face. Room 237 smelled like industrial air freshener and bad decisions. Dylan was waiting for me, pacing by the window like a caged animal. Up close, he was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the kind of artificial confidence that comes from never having been punched in the mouth. You must be Nate, he said, not offering his hand. And you must be the asshole who's been screwing my wife. Let's keep this civil. Civil? I laughed, settling into the room's single chair. You want civil? You've been tracking my movements, planning your little rendezvous around my schedule, and now you want civil? His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. The GPS tracker, Dylan. The one you had Marissa put on my truck so you'd know when it was safe to play house? That wasn't my idea. But you went along with it. He stopped pacing and looked at me directly for the first time. Look, this got out of hand. It was supposed to be a short-term thing. What was, the affair or the surveillance? Both. I had to admire his honesty, even if it made me want to throw him through the window. So, what's the plan now? You two run off together? Leave me with the mortgage and the kid? It's complicated. Uncomplicated. He sat down on the bed, suddenly looking older. Marissa's pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. Pregnant. My wife was pregnant with another man's child, and I was the last one to know. Congratulations, I said quietly. When's the happy event? 6 months. And you're sure it's yours? We're sure. I stood up slowly, my hands shaking with rage. How long has this been going on? 8 months. 8 months. I repeated the words, tasting them. 8 months of lies. 8 months of sneaking around. 8 months of making me feel like I was losing my mind. Nate, I'm sorry. We never meant for it to happen. But it did happen, and now you're having a baby. Yes. And you want me to what exactly? Give you my blessing? Help you pick out cribs? We want you to let her go. The room went very quiet. Outside, traffic hummed on the interstate. Normal people going about their normal lives while mine imploded in a hotel room that charged by the hour. Let her go, I repeated. The divorce doesn't have to be ugly. We can work something out with the house, custody of Sienna, whatever you need. How generous. I know you're angry. Do you? Do you know what it's like to find out your wife has been living a double life for 8 months? Do you know what it's like to realize that every conversation, every kiss goodnight, every I love you has been a lie? Nate, do you know what it's like to realize that your 16-year-old daughter probably knows about the affair and has been looking at you like a pathetic fool for months? That stopped him. Sienna doesn't know. Sienna knows everything. Kids always do. They just don't tell the stupid parent who's being cheated on. Dylan was quiet for a long moment, then, so, what do you want? I want my life back. I want the last 8 months back. I want to unknow everything I know and go back to being happily married to a woman I thought loved me. That's not possible. No, it's not. I stood up and walked to the door. But there are other possibilities. What's that supposed to mean? It means you and Marissa have gotten very comfortable lying to me. Now you get to find out what it feels like when someone lies to you. I left him sitting on the bed where he'd been screwing my wife and drove home to plan the final act of their destruction. The house was empty when I got there. Marissa was at work, Sienna was at school, and I had several hours to execute the most important project of my life. I started with the joint bank accounts. The community center was packed for the monthly town council meeting, which usually drew about 12 people and a stray dog. Tonight, thanks to some strategic social media posts about important community announcements, we had closer to 200. I'd spent 3 weeks preparing for this moment. 3 weeks of moving money, copying files, and documenting every lie my wife had told me over the past 8 months. 3 weeks of watching her and Dylan try to figure out who was systematically destroying their lives from the shadows. The bank accounts had been first. As the primary earner, I'd had legal access to everything, and I'd used it. The joint savings, the checking account, even the college fund we'd started for Sienna, all of it transferred to new accounts in my name only. Perfectly legal, according to my lawyer, and devastating to two people who'd gotten comfortable spending my money on hotel rooms and expensive dinners. Then came the social media campaign. Anonymous posts on neighborhood Facebook groups about suspicious activity at the Riverside Inn. Photos of Dylan's Tesla in various hotel parking lots. Screenshots of Marissa's work schedule, cross-referenced with her actual location data, which I'd been tracking ever since I'd planted my own device on her car. The Real Estate Licensing Board had opened a formal investigation into Dylan's business practices. His business partner had frozen him out of new deals pending resolution of the ethics complaint. His ex-wife had filed for increased alimony based on evidence of hidden assets and inappropriate relationships. Marissa had been put on administrative leave from her firm while they investigated her relationship with a client. She'd lost 3 major listings and had 2 deals fall through when the anonymous emails reached her other clients. But tonight was the grand finale. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, stepping up to the podium as the meeting's guest speaker, "I want to talk to you about trust." In the audience, Marissa sat frozen in her seat, her face white as paper. Dylan was beside her, looking like he wanted to run. They'd probably come expecting to hear about road repairs and zoning variances, not a public confession from the husband they'd been betraying for 8 months. "Trust is the foundation of any community," I continued. "We trust our neighbors to look out for our property when we're away. We trust our local businesses to provide honest service. We trust our family members to be faithful to the promises they make." A murmur went through the crowd. This wasn't the usual town council fare. But what happens when that trust is broken? What happens when the people closest to us decide that lies are more convenient than truth? Marissa started to stand, but Dylan pulled her back down. Smart man. Running would only make it worse. 8 months ago, my wife started having an affair with a local businessman. They've been meeting at hotels, planning a future together, and systematically lying to everyone around them about their relationship. The murmur became a buzz. Phones came out, recording everything. They put a GPS tracker on my truck, so they could monitor my movements and plan their meetings accordingly. They've been using my money to fund their relationship while planning to leave me with nothing but debt and a broken family. "Nate, please!" Marissa's voice carried across the room, desperate and pleading. "They thought they were clever," I continued, ignoring her. "They thought I was too stupid to figure it out. They thought they could manipulate me indefinitely while they built their new life together." I pulled out a manila envelope, thick with documents and photographs. But here's what they didn't know. I've been documenting everything. Every lie, every secret meeting, every financial transaction, every text message, every email, every receipt from every hotel room. Dylan was on his feet now, pushing through the crowd toward the exit. But the doors were blocked by people trying to get a better view of the show. "And here's the best part," I said, opening the envelope. 3 weeks ago, Dylan told me that my wife is pregnant with his child. 6 months along, according to him. Gasps from the audience. Marissa's face crumpled. So, I did what any responsible husband would do. I got a paternity test. I held up the DNA results, letting the moment stretch. Turns out, Dylan's not the father either. The room exploded. Marissa was sobbing now, and Dylan was shouting something I couldn't hear over the crowd noise. And half the town was taking pictures of the DNA report that proved my wife had been sleeping with at least 3 different men. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, raising my voice over the chaos, I present to you the foundation of trust in our community. My wife, Marissa Patterson, and her boyfriend, Dylan Garrett, who couldn't even keep track of whose baby they were having. I folded up the documents and stepped away from the podium. The floor is yours. The crowd surged forward, everyone shouting questions at once. Marissa and Dylan were trapped in the middle of it, their faces plastered across dozens of phone cameras, their lies exposed to everyone they'd ever known. I walked calmly to the back of the room, where Ricky was waiting with a beer and a satisfied grin. Think that was enough? He asked. More than enough. Through the crowd, I could see Marissa looking at me with a mixture of rage and devastation. Dylan was trying to push his way toward the door, but Mrs. Talbot from our neighborhood had cornered him with questions about property values and moral character. My phone buzzed with a text from Sienna. Dad, what the hell is happening? Everyone's posting videos. I typed back, your mother and I are getting divorced. You can live with whoever you want, but the college fund is safe. Are you okay? I'm perfect, sweetheart. For the first time in 8 months, I'm absolutely perfect. I finished my beer and walked out into the parking lot, leaving behind the chaos and the shouting and the ruins of two people who'd thought they could make me the fool in their story. They'd been wrong about that. They'd been wrong about everything.